I would consider myself a printmaker. I also do a lot of paper cutting and collage and more traditional types of painting. Typically, I do use some equipment. So I have some interesting projects I've been working on using large format printers and plotting devices, machines that cut or draw. And I kind of just all mix it together, like very, very eclectic and interdisciplinary is kind of I would say my niche that I feel here. I feel like I've always been making artwork, probably, since I was a child. I really committed to calling myself an artist once I went to school. So I went to SUNY New Paltz, got a degree in interdisciplinary arts. And since then, it's just been, I feel like all the different things that I've done are all in the arts world in some capacity, whether it's in a museum, whether it's in a school. I've done a mix of things. I'm the type of person that when I go to the museum, you better be prepared to be there all day. I got to check out every wing and absorb like a little bit of everything at least. All different elements of what I do have different influences. More recently, I've been experimenting more with block prints. I think that comes from Japanese block printing. Japanese practices kind of got me interested in going towards that. So, your standard prints, wood block prints, Japanese wood block prints. I like the idea of repetition. A lot of it comes from patterns found in nature, on all different levels of nature, I should say. Cellular in many ways. Sometimes I would even consider the guts of electronics and refuse. I use a lot of trash as well, tend to upcycle things. A lot of discarded papers and materials is usually what I'm working with. Those are things I'm finding in my work currently. Watershed is really where you would see anything that I'm making in the art side. In the visual arts, I would say. That's definitely, this is the place to see it. The areas that we use to show artwork, I think it's about 1,500 square feet. There's one section in particular that I have my artwork on display, which I call the alcove. That's typically where I have things on display. I was always interested in having a coffee shop / art gallery. That's always like the dream in the back of the mind kind of thing. Like if I ever have a coffee shop, I'm going to have art all over the walls and show people's art. So that's kind of what this is. That's why I think Watershed is really just a combination of my interest mixed in with the other artists that share the space with me. Hopefully we'll have our doors open a little more and actually do some more specific intentional shows and showcase, where I'd be able to showcase my artwork. Maybe that's coming around the corner, we'll see.
I'm Vernon M. Byron. I'm a conceptual artist based in Newburgh, New York. I have an interdisciplinary practice, which is mostly based in sculpture, installation, and digital printmaking. Everything is produced on Photoshop and Illustrator, and then brought into the physical world through printing or the exchange of information through computers. I like to discuss wealth and race quite a bit because those are things that are very pertinent to my own politics and my own life. I do like to push conceptual art from the lens of a person of color. So I'm trying to use that framework to discuss issues that otherwise are sort of obscured or ignored in a way that's experiential and not so much necessarily vocalized, but more like felt. I've been a big fan of Julie Moretu for quite a long time. Doug Aitken is a pretty big inspiration of mine as well. I would say that I'm influenced a lot by minimalist artists, only because I work at Dia Beacon, so I see people like Charlotte Poznanska or Dan Flavin. I'm interested in people who are using more humble materials and executing a concept that elevates whatever the materiality is, or with a larger concept. I'd have to say that this particular body of work that I'm doing is very influenced by Solowit, in the sense that it's based on a series of directions and a framework that's sort of augmented by the participants. I do a lot of photography for myself, but it often ends up filtering its way into some part of my work. Nothing fancy, mostly with a cell phone, but I try to make something interesting out of it. A lot of times I see stuff on Instagram I find things on different social media platforms, and if it is something that's actually pertinent to what I do, I usually will try and apply to it. I'm currently working with the Newburgh Community Land Bank on a large-scale installation that's going to be on Northlander Street. Essentially, it is a building-size screen that creates an illusion where you can see through the building to Audrey Carey Park, which is located about a block or two behind the structure. It's like a piece discussing visibility and invisibility based on wealth, location, identity, that sort of subject matter. I'm also doing a self-produced project thanks to two grants from Arts Mid-Hudson, which are also community-based. And those two projects are collaborative mural projects. So essentially what I did was I created a layout for the mural, designed it, and I divided it into 8.5 by 11-inch sections for the easiest ability for people to be able to print them, draw over them, and then send them back. So far, I've done 2 workshops in collaboration with the Boys and Girls Club of Newburgh and Dia Beacon education program. I did a small digital workshop with students at NFA West. I'm also working with Wickham Works on a longer term project, potentially with the Historical Society in Warwick. Success is very incremental until the moment that you pass that threshold, and then suddenly it seems as if you came from nowhere. So don't be discouraged by the incremental part of the process.
So I'm another case of the interdisciplinary. I started dipping my toes in art through photography a long time ago. That was middle school. I started shooting, and I was always just drawn to the camera. And that was kind of my way of understanding the world, was just through carrying my camera with me and shooting everything everywhere all the time. What I realized after spending a ton of time working commercially and doing all this other work was that the work that I was the most drawn to was work that involved music. So I'd be traveling around, I'd be shooting festivals. I would just go to parties and just shoot the parties. And I realized I was so drawn to music. And I always made beats and things like that. Like I was always doing music stuff, making beats in my room or DJing in my room for myself. I started taking the music thing a little bit more seriously, started acquiring new equipment and just kind of dove headfirst into it. And it's been an amazing experience. It's just been the best thing I could have ever done for myself. I don't have a ton of photographical influences. A lot of my influence right now is in the music realm, but a lot of the influence is coming from internet culture, video games I grew up playing, films. I'm visually informed a lot of the time in the music that I create. For whatever reason, when I watch a film or something like that, a lot of the textures and the light and the color and the things that I'm seeing, I have this weird thing where I can watch something and sort of decide what that look sounds like to me. So when I'm working on music, I like to have a window open where maybe an animated series is playing or Planet Earth is playing or some sci-fi is playing. Just a lot of the influence that I've been drawing from is it's a lot of visual stuff. Music is its own language. And so when you start to like dive into it and try to talk about it and dissect it, it gets kind of difficult. I've done a few gallery shows throughout the years. I haven't done any shows in recent time, but a lot of my photography is up on my Instagram, and that's where I will post archival stuff or just any of the stuff that I'm shooting at the time. I found that I was always struggling and I always felt like I was never hitting the mark when I was trying to chase after a specific sound. If you can create a track that you love just for you, there's going to be somebody else out there who loves it just as much as you do. Go fully in the direction that feels right to you. Try your best to ignore all the other stuff that's coming in all the time. So now I've got a space here with these guys. I have a little production studio here, so I write music in here. I write electronic music, I make beats, a lot of dance type music. And then through that, I'm also able to infuse my photography and then my Photoshop design skills to kind of create the look and create the branding and just kind of build a whole package that kind of all goes as one piece that I can then put out into the world.
I'm a self-taught painter. I started as a graffiti writer, doing illegal stuff in my country, Chile. I'm a mural painter. I paint canvases and I work in the studio too. I discovered that painting was a strong medium for me. It has power, I think, to transform and to change your environment. Sometimes you can inspire other people, put an idea outside, and start a conversation. 12 years ago, I started painting more in the studio. I moved into the United States 2004, and I kind of realized that I didn't have that freedom that I had in my country to paint outside because there were more laws, and I was, an immigrant, so I didn't want to risk too much. I tried to get more permissions and do mural projects, but it was hard. It has this stigma. Now it's different because it has changed. I started working in the studio. I started developing, trying to create new ideas. And also New York was the place to grow. In the beginning, I thought I was going to come to show my work, but at the end was more like come to learn. So I started evolving and started like developing new ways of painting, inspired by people that I met here or artists that I got to know or like that I got to work for. I did some assistance for established artists and like real kind of big artists. So I learned a lot from that. And that kind of led me to learn and to realize what I have to do. Not exactly ideas, but more like how they work and how the process of being a serious painter or artist was. So 2008, I got my first studio. Then I started, working there. I didn't know exactly what I was doing for sure. And within the years, I kind of started like discover what I like more and how could I do it. And that's what I've been doing since like, I don't know, 10 years now, more working in the studio. And also that kind of led me to bring new ideas to my public work. I was inspired by a lot of political graffiti in Chile in the 80s. I didn't know how they were doing it because I was a kid, and one day you go and you see something that is it just appeared. It was done last night, or so that kind of intrigued me, and I like that. When I saw New York graffiti coming to Chile, I like, okay, this is the time I need to start painting outside because before it was just a kid and I didn't have no clue how to go outside at night and do it. So I learned it through friends, to people I met, which led me to be what I am right now. Because graffiti always has this bad reputation, but for me, I think it's very important for people, for kids, and because it's like a starting point for something that it could get into another level. So I always respect it and I value it a lot. I have murals too in Newburgh, a few. One is in Liberty and Bencard. I have another in William Street, on Ann Street also. And I'm looking to do more.
I'm Leo Martinez. I guess I've become a multimedia artist. I just work with just about whatever I can find. I like to work with woods. I've been a carpenter most of my life. Since I was a kid, I did graffiti back in the 70s with some of the guys, friends from the neighborhood. After that, I joined the service and I went overseas. I work construction all my life. So there's always materials. There's always something left over. There's always, some other stuff around. So I just took whatever I had and made something out of it. And I'm still doing that. I guess the last 10 years is when I really got into making art. I moved to Puerto Rico. I lived in northern Puerto Rico. Lived right on the beach, so walking the beach every day, I always found shells, coral, different things from the beach that you could put together and make something out of. Then I started going to San Juan to sell it at different tourist spots, and people liked it. I was amazed, and then I just kept doing that. I got over here to Newburgh after Hurricane Maria. I was displaced from Atillo, Puerto Rico, and by accident wound up here in Newburgh. Then by accident came over here to the Watershed. A lot of accidents. I work with what I got. I say I have a piece of wood, a canvas. Today I feel a little playful. I pour my emotions out into what I'm doing, my feelings, and let it just develop. I did this as a hobby for many years, just to entertain myself. I'd give gifts to my family. I thought they were all being polite, saying, oh, that's really nice. And come to find out, what I make, a lot of people like. To me, it's not an effort. It's just, I just throw something together, and it seems to work. Things happen to me that always happen throughout my whole life. They start out as something subtle and then wind up into a series of events that lead me to a certain point. Like here, I had no intention of coming over here and doing anything here. Dharman asked me to come and help him with the coffee machine, to clean it up. And that's all I came over here to do, was to clean the coffee machine. A lot of opportunities in my life I've thrown away because I didn't want to do that. So I'm a little more observant of the way things flow. It's like the winds. Opportunity comes and breezes. They blow through, and if you don't get some of that fresh air, it's gone. If you're looking to get rich and famous, then maybe you ought to do something else. Art is not something that really is like a job going to the bank, as a teller or something like that. It's something that you feel. It's not a steady paycheck. So if you're going to do it, you just got to work hard at it. If you feel it and you think you can do it, don't let anybody tell you that you can't. Just go for it. What you got to lose? If you don't do it right this life, you get the next one right. We're opening up again. The whole world's coming back to life, which is a big change. I evolve. Whatever comes next, I'm involved with it. So I don't really, project that much into the future. I try to picture what's coming and work with that. I think we're just starting out. The Watershed's going to do nothing but blow up. And we're going to get more artists and more events here. I think I'm going to be here for a while doing this.
Thank you for joining us for the Orange County Arts Council virtual studio visit. This program is made possible by donations from people like you. 50% of donations go directly to the artists featured, and 50% to the Orange County Arts Council programs. Please consider donating today. You can donate by going to ocartscouncil.org. The Arts Council's virtual studio visits are presented in partnership with the Newburgh Free Library and are made possible in part by NISCA.